Hey, if you were into Iron Maiden or if you remember picture discs, I think you're going to enjoy what I have for you here today. Now, the first time I think I ever became aware of anything like a picture disc, and I'm actually curious how many of you remember this, was getting a cereal box once that had a little record on the back of it. Do you remember this? I can't remember if it was Fruity Pebbles or Count Chocula or something like that. And literally there was a record embedded on the back of the cereal box, and you'd buy this cereal, you'd take it home, you get your scissors out and you would cut the record out of the back. And then I remember doing this and then going and putting it on my little record player that I would play my Kiss records on, put this thing on there, and you'd turn it on and put the needle down. And as soon as you'd put the needle down, it wouldn't turn at all because it just didn't have any weight or any ability to stick to the platter. And so I remember going and grabbing masking tape and taping the record down to the little platter so I could get the needle down and have it spin. And then it's spinning, and you put the needle down, and of course what you hear is, you hear this just horrible noise. And then kind of you can hear a voice or something in there, and it tells you a little story or something for a minute or so. But it was pretty cool. I mean, it was kind of a fun experience to get something like that. But that was the first time I remember being aware of the idea of having a little record that could have a picture on it. So it was many years later. I'm now into hard rock, heavy metal. I'm a young teen, and I start seeing picture discs at the record store. And this one that I have on the screen right now, I think is the very first picture disc I ever bought. And it's kind of a funny story about why I bought this thing. So, and I've told the story about how I got Number of the Beast for the first time when I bought that. I've told that on this channel, I think, a couple of times because I thought that was kind of a funny story too. Anyway, my mom bought it for me after I mowed the lawn. Anyway, but what happened, I played that album, Number of the Beast, so many times. And at one point, I don't remember how this happened, but at the very, very beginning of the song Number of the Beast, woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil sends a beast with wrath. That part. Well, somewhere in there, I don't know how it happened, but it had this little noise that would happen during that part, which just drove me crazy. Because I took such good care of my records. When you're watching this channel, any records that I bring out that look like they were just bought, it's because I treated my records better than anything in my life. I barely ever even touched them. I never touched the outside of them. So when you see a beat up record on this channel, it's because I bought it used or bought it later. None of the records I bought as a kid look anything but perfect. So anyway, it drove me crazy to have this one song that had this noise in it. So I remember being at the record store. The record store that I went to was called Sound Warehouse. It was in Denver, Colorado. It was on, I think, University and Colorado Boulevard. I think that was what the crossroads, maybe it was University and Dry Creek. Anyway, I can't remember. It was right across the street from Arapahoe High School. And I used to go there, and that's where I bought all my records. And I remember seeing this there, and I thought to myself, you know what? I would love to have a picture disc. That noise drives me so crazy in my copy of Number of the Beast. What I can do is buy this. I won't have to buy another copy. This is teenage brain, going at the time. And I thought, I'll just have another copy, and I'll have one that sounds good, and then it won't drive me crazy. So then, not knowing, of course, and some of you know where this is going already, that picture discs don't sound great. So I remember buying this and taking it home and putting it on thinking, okay, now I'm going to have a pristine, perfect sounding copy of the beginning of Number of the Beast. And it doesn't sound awful, but it definitely degrades the quality a little bit having a picture disc, at least at the time. I think these days they may have improved the technology in doing this. But anyway, so that's what... but I've had it ever since, and it's kind of a cool thing. I'll take it out so we can just take a quick look at it. And it is beautiful. And of course, this is Derek Riggs at his best. one of his greatest pieces of artwork. Of course, if you don't know, Derek Riggs is the guy that did a lot of this Iron Maiden artwork, and it's just this particular one was just so amazing. And of course they arranged it a little differently, because if you remember the actual album, Iron Maiden's written across the top, and things are just arranged a little bit differently, but you get the point here. And then you flip it over, and then you just have the close up there of the devil, and then the track list on the side. One thing that was a little disappointing about this picture disc is that they didn't do anything different. It was basically the album cover on the front and then zoomed in album cover on the back. Sometimes these things were cool because on a picture disc, you'd get something new, something different that you hadn't seen before. They didn't do that here. But again, the reason I did it was I wanted to have something that sounded a little better, and then whatever. Anyway, but today it's cool to have in the collection. Do we have this really cool picture disc? Well, now what got me on this going down this road anyway was kind of funny, because when I was recently thinking about what would one of the shows that we could do, I started thinking, we do so many things where we talk about. We talk about old records, old concert reviews, and we find newspaper articles about them. And I'm just thinking, I haven't talked about Iron Maiden in a while, because I really liked Iron Maiden. And in these early days, I was so into them. And this is when I was really getting into heavy metal and hard rock, and they were just one of those bands that I just fell in love with. And so I was just thinking about this, and I was just doing some normal research that we do for things on this channel. And I thought, rather than doing a search on an album name or even a band name, maybe what I should do some research on is see if I can find something about a song, a particular song. And I was thinking about Iron Maiden, and I was thinking, what is my very favorite Iron Maiden song? And my very favorite Iron Maiden song, and there's a lot of other songs that are very close, but it would have to be Hallowed Be Thy Name. And I'm sure there are people out there that would agree with me on this, and it's on this album. It's right there. It's the last song on side 2. That song is just so amazing. It starts off, I'm waiting in my cold cell as the bell begins to chime. Oh my gosh. Bruce Dickinson's voice in that thing is so cool. And it's, bam, 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 bam. And then, running low, ho, ho. It just, when it starts going, man, it's so great. So it's a story about this guy that is going to be executed. And just kind of thinking about his life and what this all means to him, and believing in God and an afterlife, and it's so cool. And then all these different movements it goes through, and how it speeds up, how the intensity increases, and then you get to the end of the name, and he's singing "Hallowed Be Thy Name, Hallowed Be Thy Name" at the very end of it. It is such an amazing song. I don't think it would be possible for me to get tired of that song. It's so good. And anyway, it's so powerful. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to do a search and see if I can find somebody referencing the song "Hallowed Be Thy Name." So I searched on "Hallowed Be Thy Name," and I started finding all these different things related to different churches and sermons and things. And I started dialing in Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson, and then look what popped up. And I'm going to put that on the screen now. I get this article that pops up, and it's the title of it is "Magic Moments, Iron Maiden's Raison d'Etre." And look what the picture is. It's a picture of the band, of course, right there. You've got Adrian, Clive, Bruce, Dave, and Steve. And then they've got a picture of the picture disc. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then, then all these things are coming together. I have that picture disc, and I run down to the collection and pull it out. And I started thinking about the song. And then I read the article, and this article, it's not like there's anything like brand new that you've never heard before, but they reference the song "Hallowed Be Thy Name" in the article. And that's that's why I'm sitting here doing this particular video today, was that I had all these little things come together, and then it got tied into the fact that not just showing the album cover, which they could have easily done, they showed the picture disc cover right there on this article, which I thought was so cool. So all these thoughts going through my head, and that's why you get to listen to me rambling about picture discs today and showing you this old Iron Maiden picture disc that I picked up when I was a teenager. And yeah, and this is the one. I was probably 14, 15 years old when I bought this. And this is the one. So I'm going to read this to you. I think you find this kind of interesting. This one's very short, but it's kind of a cool little article about Iron Maiden. And it talks to, I think they talk to Bruce in here. He has a couple of quotes, and actually Clive Burr, I think, has something in here too, which is kind of cool because, as you know, this is the last album that Clive Burr, the drummer, played on. And the next album, Peace of Mind, would have Nico McBrain on it. Okay, so this is from the Edmonton Journal, July 2nd, 1982. Back from years of seclusion, a healthier, happier Robert Plant recently gave notice that Led Zeppelin, the progenitor of heavy metal, no longer exists. With the death of drummer John Bonham, disappeared Zeppelin's ability and desire to recreate the moments when the blonde main singer's piercing voice, in conjunction with Jimmy Page's riffs, John Paul Jones' rumbling bass, and Bonham's barraging, would lay to waste both mind and body. And it was interesting because here we were in 1982, and it was pretty obvious that Led Zeppelin was over, because Robert Plant about this time comes in and he starts doing his solo stuff. And that's kind of what we're saying there, is that we had Bonham that passed away, and then it just kind of went radio silence. And it was kind of over at that point. And then, of course, it was a while later that Jimmy Page would come out with Coda, which had all and we've talked about that on this channel before. But you have now you have this empty space, and we've even talked about this on this channel before because we found articles where they talk about it, the Led Zeppelin gap. Like, Zeppelin's gone, now what? And so now they start off this article saying, okay, Led Zeppelin's gone, Robert Plant's back doing solo stuff now, but Zeppelin is over. The people that, supposedly started heavy metal, that's a whole nother discussion, obviously, and then now they go into this article. That skeleton of a musical form initiated in Whole Lotta Love has since been amplified many times over. Now, in this latest heavy metal resurgence, countless younger, tougher, and louder bands are working to outperform the innovators. That pure adrenaline rush that heavy metal strives for and thrives on has endured without blemish, embellished with higher decibel distortions and more theatrically than the first generation could have conceived of. It says nothing new, but its coding has become increasingly attractive with age. That's kind of an interesting statement. Mindless droning? Perhaps. Magic moments, says Iron Maiden. Vocalist Bruce Dickinson enthusiastically applauds his band's ability and willingness to push for and pursue those elusive moments, quote, when everything just pulls together without reason and explanation, and you just know it's right and you go, quote, unquote. It's a time when reality and fantasy, by nature mutually exclusive, harmonize. Dickinson elaborates, quote, you're dealing with reality, but in a fantastic way. And this is actually kind of an interesting thing. And I'm not going to get too far off course here, but I do want to mention this because I know we have a lot of musicians that watch this channel. And it's interesting to listen to that idea of these magic moments, because I know if you're a performing musician, you've jammed with people before, and you have those moments that really can't be described any other way than that. It's kind of like these magic moments when you're with a bunch of guys playing some music, and then for some reason it just clicks and you feel it happen. You're like, and you're in the zone. You feel that happen there. And it's interesting to listen to other musicians, because he's not the first, that reference this thing that happens. And he's calling it magic moments, but so many musicians, you experience that when things just align. Okay. Let's see here. That element of fantasy carries over to the band's mascot, Eddie. an artist's conception of evil in human form. The satanic skeleton has worked so well in two-dimensional form that he was given depth and will escort Maiden when they arrive at the Kingsman Fieldhouse in late July. Eddie, says drummer Clive Burr slyly, quote, will make a bigger-than-life appearance. Burr enjoys the advertising gimmickry as great fun, but is quick to explain that, quote, it's got nothing to do with us in real life. We don't practice any of this black magic stuff. We're not devils. We're not angels either. You know, just somewhere in between, unquote. It's funny how often back in those days, these bands were almost forced to have to do that disclaimer about this stuff. They'd use this imagery that had this kind of dark, eerie look to it, which you would never think anything about if it was in a movie. It'd just be a horror movie. But you put it on the cover of a record and all of a sudden, these are Satan worshipers. You go, it was kind of so silly looking back, but all these bands had to have these disclaimers. They'd have this really cool imagery, but then they'd have to explain somehow that that's not us in real life, you know. Obviously. Just like the movie maker, that's not him in real life. He's making a horror film. Anyway, it's just interesting that we put that whole different standard on these people that were making this cool music and this cool artwork that resonated with young teenage boys. We loved it. And even today, I look at this stuff and it's just awesome. It's so cool looking. Okay. While the name refers to a medieval torture device, a sarcophagus whose door is lined with spikes, the group's third and latest release, The Number of the Beast, refers to 666, the number of the Antichrist in the book of Revelations. The album is littered with religious symbolism and references, Children of the Damned and Hallowed Be Thy Name figuring most prominently. And there was the reference. So when I was doing research, that's how I found it, because they mentioned that in there, the religious significance. And really, there is no religious significance when they use it there. It's not like it's being used the way they use it in the Bible. As I said earlier, the beauty of that song is it figures out this way of encapsulating what a human would be going through in that moment that they're living their last moments, in that time that they're living their last moments. And what are the things going through on in your mind at that point, and your relationship with God, and it's just fascinating. The lyrics and the story is so great. Okay. Let's see here. Originally, with another British band, Samson, Burr jumped to Maiden with when bassist Steve Harris formed the group in 1977. Last year, when Maiden vocalist Paul Di'Anno called it quits, he suggested Samson teammate Dickinson as a replacement. The blonde 23-year-old has been added. Power, plenty of it, and focus, the drummer says. For his part, Dickinson, a university history student who went straight from school to Samson, has few illusions about what heavy metal is and isn't. Quote, it's a pointless kind of exercise to examine the music. At its best, it's live. You can put it on a record, but you can't capture it there. The whole essence of it is live, unquote. As for an examination of Maiden's development through its 3 discs, Dickinson says, quote, it was raw, the first album. It was done in just 2 weeks, you understand, and it sounded raw. The second had more depth. It was also done in a rush, but there was more progression. The Number of the Beast is paced, cleaner, and there's much more depth here. The writing is stronger. We played together. And it's interesting having him talk about those things, because the first 2 albums he wasn't even on. Iron Maiden and Killers, of course. And then this is the 3rd studio album, and this is the first one that Bruce is even singing on. So, and boy, he was just, and I know it's interesting because for a lot of people like me, this was our introduction to Iron Maiden, was this album. And we didn't even really know that Killers or the first album even existed. And then you start getting into them and you start going back and listening to it and you go, oh, wait, there's this other stuff. There's this other singer even on this old stuff. Currently, on a North American tour, Maiden is breaking ground in Canada, and says Burr, quote, the exploring is going well, the reaction's been super, unquote. The band has headlined concerts in the East, but when they play the Fieldhouse, they will open for the German headbangers Scorpions. We're friends, says Dickinson. No one is out there to blow anybody else out of the water. The combination is pretty balanced. Scorpions do some ballads, but the ballads don't really suit us. The relationship musically is comfortable as is grabbing for those fleeting but so rewarding magic moments. And that's the end of the article. And that is interesting, them touring, opening up for the Scorpions. Scorpions would have, let's see, this article is July 2nd, 1982. The Number of the Beast came out in March of 1982. Scorpions would have been, this is blackout time period, which is, they're talking about, if you've ever seen Scorpions, I saw them on that tour actually. And it was one of I still remember it as being one of the coolest concerts I ever went to. I love Scorpions. And they were so, when I saw them though, it was Quiet Riot that was opening up. And they were just, Klaus is he's so entertaining on stage. And the whole band is so tight and they're so cool and their music is so great. I love Scorpions. Anyway, that's not the topic here today. But it is interesting though, looking back on this album and seeing the ultimate impact that this record would have on heavy metal as a genre. They started out this article talking about the fact that Led Zeppelin had kind of started this, and I don't know, that's arguable. Or was it Black Sabbath that really got all that going? But he tied it back to the song "Whole Lotta Love" and the kind of heavy sound that came out of that period. And then back then, of course, that's when Black Sabbath was showing up with their first album, and then Paranoid, and boy, they just set the stage for this sound that would then permeate, and then it would grow eventually into this. And then you look at those touchstones along the way, and I really think that this also is one of them, the Number of the Beast. There's so many people that this thing really impacted how we see music and the whole progression of heavy metal as a genre. This album just changed so much. And for me, start to finish, front to back, this is one of those albums that Invaders is a great tune, Children of the Damned is amazing, The Prisoner is such a cool tune. It's just an awesome song. 22 Acacia Avenue, I remember the first time I heard that was just, oh my gosh. Again, love that song. Number of the Beast, how do you beat that song ever? It's just so, again, another song that has this really cool kind of story in it. And then Run to the Hills, that was the first song I ever heard on this album. And that's another one. How do you not like that tune? The lyrics are great. The video is fun and crazy. And just a beautiful song. Gangland is an awesome song. But this album ends up with a tune that I just could never get enough of, Hallowed Be Thy Name. And I remember when I bought this and I listened to it, and I spent so much time listening to Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills, and then slowly kind of spread out, getting more and more interested in the rest of this album, realizing just how great this whole thing was. There was that realization when I was listening to Hallowed Be Thy Name one time, and it gets to the very end of it. Oh, hallowed be thy name. When he's singing that part, and the chills, and you realize how this might be the best song on this album. And then over the years, I've kind of, as I've bought more and more, as you buy more and more Iron Maiden albums, you buy Peace of Mind next, and then Power Slave, and you keep going back going, yeah, but have they ever really, really outdone that song? It was so great. Anyway, so that's what got me going down this path, doing a search on that song, finding an article where they just reference it, and just thinking back, that was just so great. And I'd love to get your feedback on that. This album, how did this impact you? Do you agree with me that this was one of those touchstones in the progression of heavy metal over the years? And also, if you had this, because I know if you've watched this all the way to this point in this video, you had this album and you've heard every song on it for sure. The song Hallowed Be Thy Name. Where does that fit for you? Not just with Iron Maiden, because I think most people would think that's up there with their best tunes. Where does that fit in the pantheon of heavy metal? Because to me, it's not just one of Iron Maiden's best songs, if not their best song. It is one of the greatest songs ever recorded, in my opinion, in that entire era of heavy metal. You go back into the 80s, and that song itself is a touchstone of just what great music and great hard rock, great heavy metal is all about. So amazing. Anyway, I'd love to get your feedback. Please put that down in the comments. If you're not following this channel already, this would be a great time to go hit that button and follow this channel, and also like the video. And if you enjoyed watching this, I know you know other people that would too. You probably have friends on Facebook. You have people that you could email this to. Please hit that share button. Send the URL to some people you know, because if you enjoyed this, I'm certain they would enjoy seeing something like this too. And you'd be doing us a favor and them a favor sharing it with them. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.